In this video, I want to look at the different dance types that you might get when you're doing if you do question 3, the Leaving Cert melody writing section. There are a couple of different dance types you'll kind of need to know at least a little bit about if you want to do question 3. The main ones are a waltz, which most people would probably have heard of. Then we've got a minuet. So, minuet. Then we've got a jig, spelled with a G. So Gigue. You've got a gavotte. You've got one's kind of similar to a gavotte, which is called a Bray. So, there are 2 R's in this. Bray. And then you've got your Irish traditional dances. So you've got reel, hornpipe, and jig. So those are the ones that you're really going to need to know a little bit about. So just to give you some basic background on each of them, a waltz is in 3/4 time. That's the main feature you need to know of it. Generally tends to have 1 chord per bar. So 1 chord per bar, and that's something you really need to think about when you're writing. So you're not going to want to change chords too often, and you're not going to want to hold chords for too long over several bars at a time. It tends to change chord every single bar on beat 1. That's the main feature of the waltz. It's quite famous for its accompaniment, the pa feel. That's the kind of what waltzes are known for. But all you'll have to do is write the melody, so you don't really need to worry about that part. You just need to read the instructions you're given and try and write your melody in 3/4 time with 1 chord per bar. Minuet, I'll just use a different color so they don't get mixed up. A minuet is also in 3/4 time. It's slightly different from waltz. It's much more stately. It's kind of a stately dance, which means it's quite aristocratic, and it tends to use a particular rhythm. The rhythm tends to be, so it's minim, crotchet. Then you've got your bar. That's crotchet. 2 sets of quavers. Oops. Okay, and then it does something similar to that. It reuses your minim crotchet, and then instead of 2 sets of quavers, it has crotchet, 1 set of quavers, and a crotchet. So that's the basic rhythm of a minuet, but it'll probably give you that in the first 4 bars anyway, or something similar to it, and you use the rhythm they've given you, because a minuet doesn't always use this exact rhythm, but it's usually something quite similar to this. Jig then. A jig is in 6/8 time. It's quite a lively dance. It's kind of a folk dance. So you want to have you want to make a pretty upbeat. When you give your tempo marking, you want to have quite a fast tempo for a jig, whereas a minuet would have been quite medium to slow tempo. And the rhythm they tend to use is, so it's crotchet quaver in the first bar, and then in the answering bar you tend to just have all quavers, so 6 quavers. But again, just like with the minuet, if they give you a different rhythm in the opening 4 bars, stick to the rhythm they've given you. It doesn't have to be this exact one. This is just a kind of a guideline. A gavotte, a gavotte is in 4/4 time, and the main defining feature of it is that it begins on the 3rd beat of the bar. So you've got a 2-beat upbeat. So it begins on 3rd beat. Okay. Tends to be mostly crotchet and quaver movement. The odd dotted crotchet quaver is used in there, but mostly crotchets and even quavers. A gavotte is it's usually in binary form, which means you'll usually be asked to write in AABB. So that's what binary form is, AABB, or at least AA1, BB1. Okay, then you've got a beret. A beret is also in 4/4 time, quite similar to a gavotte. The main difference is that a beret has a 1-beat upbeat, so it begins on the 4th beat of the bar. So you've only got a 1-beat upbeat, whereas a gavotte had a 2-beat upbeat. There are a couple of rhythms that tend to be used with a beret. It often tends to use this rhythm, so you've got a crotchet upbeat, Then you've got crotchet, 2 quavers, crotchet, crotchet, and then the next bar you've got crotchet minim. And of course it's only 3 beats in that last bar because you've got your crotchet upbeat. Another rhythm that's used quite often in a beret is a little bit more lively. You got 2 minims as your upbeat. Then you've got 2 quavers as your upbeat rather. Then you've got crotchet, 2 quavers, crotchet, 2 quavers. You got your next bar line, and then you've got 4 quavers and a crotchet. So 4 quavers and a crotchet. That's the main rhythm. Those are the 2 main rhythms used in a beret. Real jig and hornpipe I'm going to cover in a lot more detail when I do my videos on Irish music, but a real, it's in 4/4 time. It's very fast. Tends to be, it's the fastest type of tune used in Irish music usually, one of the fastest at least, and it tends to have a straight rhythm, so straight quavers. So the rhythm is based around straight quavers and some crotchets. Hornpipe, hornpipe is also in 4/4. It's of a medium tempo, so it's a lot slower than a reel. And rather than the straight quavers, it tends to have this rhythm. So it's like a bouncing rhythm. It's dotted crotchet, semiquaver, dotted quaver, semiquaver, dotted quaver, semiquaver. So that's the main differences between a hornpipe and a reel. Hornpipe is slower and it tends to have that dotted rhythm, whereas a reel tends to have straight quavers, just like this. Okay, and a jig is in, you got several different types of jig. I'm just going to scroll down so that you can see all these. Jig usually tends to be in 6/8 time. You've got what's called a single jig. So a single jig has this rhythm. So it's crotchet quaver is the main rhythm of it. You've also got a double jig, also in 6/8 time, but the rhythm tends to be more like this. It's all quavers, so groups of 3 quavers each time. And you've also got one, I don't think they'll give you this one, but you've also got a slip jig, which is in 9/8 time, and again tends to be all quavers. So tends to be 3 groups of 3 quavers per bar. And those are the main types of dance you're going to get. So waltz, minuet, jig, gavotte, beret, reel, hornpipe, and the other type of jig. But there are a couple of points I want to make before I go. The last few years have been nearly all either gavotte, so a jig with a G, or a minuet. I've looked over the last couple of years of exam papers, and nearly every single one of them have asked you to either compose a gavotte, a jig, or a minuet. It hasn't used any of the other dances. That said, I would still look at the other ones, just know a little bit about them, just to be on the safe side. But those are the ones that have been used in every single paper over the last few years: gavotte, jig, and minuet. If you're unsure, if you come to the exam and you're not sure, it's slipped your mind, you can't remember if a gavotte is in 6/8 time or 4/4 time, you can't remember anything, you've completely blanked out, you just need to look at the material they've given. So look at the material given, because that will usually tell you everything you need to know anyway. If the 4 bars given you is in 6/8 time, and it will say at the top, it will tell you whether you should be writing for a gavotte, jig, or minuet, or whatever else. And the material they've given will have characteristics of that dance type anyway. So if they've asked you to write a jig, the 4 bars they've given you will be in 6/8 time, and it will have the features of a jig already in there. If it's a gavotte, it will already be in 4/4 time, and you'll already have your 2 beat upbeat. You just need to stick to that, put your phrase marks in the right place, and make sure each of your phrases start with that 2 beat upbeat. Okay, so just look at the material given. That's the main thing. And the form they've asked you to use over the last couple of years has been nearly always either binary or rounded binary. Okay, and I'll explain each of those. So binary is when you've got A, A1, B, B1, which you've looked at quite a bit in our previous videos, so you can look back over them. Rounded binary is you still got A, A1, and B, but instead of B1 at the end, you've got A2. So again, you're just reusing A, A1, but you're putting in a perfect cadence at the end. That's what your rounded binary is. This is actually quite similar to what we've done. If you look at any of our videos on question 1, they all tend to be in something at least similar to rounded binary form. You have your 4 bars given. You repeat a lot of those ideas for the next 4 bars. You have a contrasting section where you would normally have your sequence and things. And then for this bit, for A2, you've again repeated a lot of stuff from bars 1 and 2, 3 and 4, but you've got your perfect cadence at the end. So that's the main forms used. They've asked you to use have always been either AABB or AABA. Okay, those are the main things. Just at the end, also don't forget to add in your instruments. Tick your box for your instrument and add in your performance directions. So performance directions. So your dynamics, your phrasing, and everything else. Your tempo. But yeah, in the future I'll try my best to do a video on rounded binary form, and I'll also try and do one on a minuet, because I've looked at a gavotte and a jig in our previous few videos. So since a minuet comes up quite often, I'll try and look at that in future. And the main thing to do, just have a quick look at those, try and learn off those different dance types, the different features, and just be aware of the different forms as well.